Welcome to the Advanced Sports Analytics Show here on Rotogrinders, brought to you by Jock Market. Stop throwing your money away. It's time to check out Jock Market, the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. Buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. Download now for a 100% deposit match up to $50 using the promo code GRINDERS. And if you get this, and you get this, and get this, people, get closer. Get this. If you don't turn a profit this week, Jock Market is running back their first market guarantee to cover your losses this week. Download Jock Market in the app or Play stores, or check out jockmarket.com. That's JOCKMKT.com, and use the code GRINDERS for a 100% deposit match up to $50 on your first deposit. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Ed, Blender HD. If you want to follow me there on Twitter, joined by the man behind the numbers, the dials, the buttons, the hamster wheels at Advanced Sports Analytics, Stewart Gibson for a 11-game NFL slate coming up this Sunday. The thing that stands out on this slate overall is that, like, all the top projected players for their price are pretty much all running backs. Like, I'm looking through our projections that, like, we have a wealth of options at running back that project well. And obviously on DraftKings, you can only play 3 maximum in your lineup. On slates like this, with so many running backs to choose from, are you more likely to get different at running back or get different at wide receiver, like as far as your stacks are concerned?
Yeah, I think probably wide receiver. Like, I kind of would liken this to that week we had, I don't know, must have been 2 or 3 weeks ago, where there were just like four or so running backs that just popped up as kind of supreme value, figured to get pretty strong ownership. And for the most part, like, those guys comprise the pool of players that, you know, were part of the tournament winning lineups. Trying to think who that week was. It was like Connor was one of the letdowns who I had a lot of, and it was well, I'm drawing a blank, but there was, you know, there was like 3 or 4 just, like, you know, clear value running backs thrust into a starting role because injury to their starter. Ingram was one of them, you know, with Houston, and, you know, and we've seen this in the past, like with guys like Madison, where it's just like, rather than trying to, you know, you sometimes, I think, can fall into the thinking of like, well, you know, want to be different, want to, you know, fade the chalk on this kind of value play. And I don't know. So sometimes it's just like, it's good chalk for a reason. So I think being kind of tight on my running back pool and restricting it to some of the guys that stand head and shoulders above the field in terms of value is something I'm going to be focused on doing, and try to differentiate with stacks, you know, pass catchers, or potentially trying to combine some of those running backs that are in a solid pass game role with, you know, stacking them with quarterback and receivers. I think, you know, you're likely to see a lot of these guys get plugged in as one-offs or part of secondary type stacks. And there's a few of these guys that I'm pretty interested in as far as a game stack type play. So being willing to do that maybe is kind of a way to get different from, you know, the field, which is, you know, just going to play, you know, Connor plus pass catcher, or, you know, Gibson plus Moreau, you know, stuff like that.
Well, I pointed this out on the DFS pregame show, which you could watch on the Rotogrinders YouTube channel every weekday at 11 o'clock in the morning, that if we take a look at our Gridiron IQ projections currently as they stand on Friday at noon, there are 9, let me make sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 running backs that have a salary adjusted plus value of 2 points or higher. So we have Mixon at 2, Eckler 2.35, Montgomery 2.35, Jacobs 2.74, Gibson 2.97, Henderson 3.35, Williams 3.72, Connor 4.18, and Taylor 4.56. In the wide receiver position, there are no wide receivers that have a salary adjusted plus minus value over 2. We have Allen, Waddle, Godwin, who are in the 1 to 1.5 range. Then we got like Pittman, Jones Jr., Chenault, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, Deontay Johnson, kind of that range around, 0 to 1.5 a point. And then we have a whole bunch of people that are like -0.5, -1, right? Now, the difference in a wide receiver, the difference of 2 points for a wide receiver is 1 catch for 10 yards. Okay. So in NFL terms, now at running back, people would think that, okay, well, I got 9 options that are viable. So I'm more likely to fade one of them because I think that with the amount of running backs that are viable, the ownership will be more spread out. I don't think we're going to see any running back with more than 25% ownership. We may see Taylor at 25. We may see Connor at low 20s. Maybe Henderson in the round 20. Jamal Williams around 12. Like nothing's going to be like head and shoulders like 40% owned. But that's primarily because everyone could realize that there's so many options to play, right? Jacobs is going to be 10 to 12. Gibson's going to be 15 to 18. Eckler is going to be 15 to 18. Mixon's going to be 12 to 15. So people think it's like, well, I'm going to get different at running back. It's like, really? Are you really getting different at running back? I mean, like the combinations of 3 running backs you can make out of just like 9 or 10 running backs are so much. But what's going to happen is that the ownership at the wide receiver position is going to condense more because people are going to see Allen, Waddle, Godwin, those types of guys and go, well, they obviously project, 1 or 2 points higher than so many of these other guys. But in the span of just random variance, like we have, for instance, like Jalen Waddle at 6,400 at 24% projected ownership. Renfro at 5,800 is 8%. But the difference in salary adjusted value is less than 2 points. So less than a 10-yard catch. So like I'm looking more to get different in the wide receiver spots, not because like there's a select group of like, I'm only going to play 3 or 4 running backs in all my lineups. No, I'm probably going to play like 10 running backs in all my lineups, but I'd be less inclined to play a lot of the over-owned wide receivers only because, they project for 2 points higher. I think you could to me, there's no reason why like Godwin at 6,600 is projected to be 25% owned and Jamar Chase is projected to be 6% owned with only a 2-point difference. A 2-point difference at running back amongst those top, 10 players, like doesn't get you that much ownership. I mean, the difference between like, okay, I'm going to play Josh Jacobs over Antonio Gibson. Well, Gibson's 16% owned and Jacobs 12% owned. Like how much ownership discount are you getting there? Yet it's the same type of consideration you're having for like a Godwin and a Chase, right? Are you going to play Joe Mixon at 8,100 or are you going to play Eckler at 8,300? Well, they're both like 19, 18% owned. I mean, like you're not gaining that much by being that different at running back, as long as you're taking one of 10 options up at top. But I think there's a lot more value this slate into not like eating the chalk at wide receiver only because these certain players are just like 1 or 2 points slightly higher projected than anyone else and is causing an ownership disparity of 3 or 4 to 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like you're more in favor of differentiating at running back than receiver. Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, I think the better way of putting it is I'm more likely to diversify at running back, meaning that I'll play a lot. Like I'm not going to play 50% of one running back. I'm just going to smatter these three of these running backs in all my lineups. But I'd be more inclined to not play Keenan Allen as a one-off or Waddle as a one, like any of these top, unless they're in a stack. Like to me, like I could see myself not having any Keenan Allen one-offs, but only in Cincinnati Charger game stacks. Waddle only if you even play the Miami, New York game stack. If you're don't play Godwin as a one-off, like to me, because the difference of 2 points median wise, like why aren't I playing Justin Jefferson instead? Why aren't I playing Tyler Lockett? Like the difference between Godwin and Lockett is the difference of 2.5 median points. That's it. So in the case of a 15-yard catch, why should Lockett be like over like 2 or 3 times less owned than Godwin? So like that, to me, that's how I'm viewing it. That it's not necessarily like, am I going to get different at wide receiver? Just that I'm more likely to not have chalky wide receivers that aren't in stacks because the opportunity cost at wide receiver is not high, right? Because no one, like the efficiency of pricing in wide receiver, it's much more than at running back. But like at running back, it was like, oh, well, I'm not going to play Connor or Williams or Gibson or Jacobs or anything. I'm going to go down and I'm going to play a poorly projected Mike Davis, David Johnson, right? Miles Sanders, like even Najee Harris at 7,700. It's like, he has a salary adjusted value of minus 1.7 in our current gridiron IQ projections. But like, dude, there's like 5, 6, 7 running backs that project for 4 points higher than Najee Harris. And if Najee Harris is going to be 5% owned, dude, I'll take the 4 points and get a running back at 12% owned, right? Like it's not worth the ownership discount at running back. So I'm going to stick to like the running backs in this range, but at wide receiver, just the opportunity cost is so much lower because mostly everyone is efficient.
Yeah. You talk about like wanting or being more open to eating the chalky pieces when they are a part of a stack, a correlative stack. It does seem like some of these, highly projected running backs figure to factor in like the passing game in a meaningful way. How do you think about, I guess, willingness to eat running back chalk and potentially trying to correlate your exposure to those running backs with, I guess, other pieces of your lineup?
I'm definitely willing to do that. I think less people will do that. I think less people will play a lineup like Wentz Taylor or Kyler Connor or Heineke Gibson or Stafford Henderson, like that type of lineup, where instead of pairing them with 2 wide receivers / tight ends, that I'm more likely to do quarterback, running back, wide receiver type of lineups, because I think it'll be a little bit more different, where I'm still playing one of these range of, 10 running backs, but I'm correlating that and then not playing that wide receiver one-off from that's too chalky. Like, yeah, I think it's absolutely viable, especially on a slate where like the spread between games is not that dramatic. We have 3 games that have a 50 plus total, but we have some at 47, 46, 45. We have some lower, 43, 40. But to me, I think there are going to be 2 standout games in ownership. And I've run lineups, and the projections between like the game stacks of a lot of these games are not as dramatic, like between the top games and like the middle tier, that I'm not sure if I'm willing to even eat the ownership there as well. So like we start like the 2 most popular games are going to be Tampa Bay at Atlanta and Cincinnati and Chargers at Bengals. So starting with the Tampa Bay game. So it's a 50.5 total. Tampa Bay has the highest implied total on the slate, 30.5. Falcons 20. The Buccaneers are a 10.5 point favorite. So we look at this game, and let me click over here to show. We have Brady as one of the 2 top, basically Brady and Herbert, 2 top owned quarterbacks. Pairing him, Gronkowski is 5,300. I don't think they raised his price high enough. We'll talk about Foster Moreau at tight end also. But it makes sense that, playing Brady, Godwin, Gronk, and then like Patterson or maybe Gage or possibly Pitts. I almost feel like it's possible that the Buccaneers with this, 10.5 point spread, that who says you even need to play any Falcons players? I mean, it seems like anytime I roster a Falcons player, They fail unless it's Patterson, and those are the weeks that I don't roster.
Yeah, it does feel like a spot where you don't necessarily need to bring back. Like Tampa Bay is, they pass a lot, kind of independent of game environment. So I don't know that a Tampa Bay ceiling game from like a stack and kind of passing oriented standpoint necessarily has to be coupled with like Atlanta, quote unquote, pushing Tampa Bay. Like Tampa Bay, they'll pass independent of game script. So definitely, I think a fine spot to pass over bringing someone back. And yeah, I think like to me, Pitts would be the most appealing bring back, but I'm also very intrigued in Gronk just because I think he's, a lot of people are going to play Foster Moreau. Typically, like double tight end, I don't think is a super strong like tournament strategy. But I don't know. I guess if you find yourself rostering Gronk, maybe you're okay with like leaving off an Atlanta guy, or maybe if you want to fill that tight end position with Pitts, and then you could go like two Tampa Bay pass catchers. I've got like Fournette circled as a guy as one of these running backs that's going to get a good bit of ownership. Not like a ton. I don't think he's quite at the top tier, but I think a guy who factors in the pass game. And then, of course, by being a high spread projected to be Tampa Bay blowout, you get kind of some exposure to his running potential, as well as kind of the correlated outcomes with Brady. So I think that's like an interesting spot to look for maybe how to differentiate. Like, I think Fournette one-off should be pretty popular. Godwin one-off should be pretty popular. Godwin with Brady should be fairly popular. But maybe trying to throw in something like Fournette plus Godwin, or Fournette plus Gronk plus Brady, something like that. Maybe could be one way to differentiate, because I don't think too many of those Fournette lineups will be combined with Brady.
Let me just point it out. Godwin 6,600, Evans 6,700. In our current projections, Godwin projects for 1.5 points more. The ownership is 5 times different.
Yeah.
So to me, this is an easy Evans one-off type of, like, we're playing the stack, obviously, but like to me, if I'm not going to play Godwin as a one-off as chalk in the wide receiver spot, like it makes so much more sense to play a Gronk one-off or an Evans one-off, or even Fournette or something, even though he's not in the top tier of running backs. And the Atlanta side, I just Cordell Patterson he's running back at 7,000. The amount of running backs who are on the slate, I know I say this almost every week. Like if he gets there, he gets. If he gets 30 points, just whatever, dude. I just don't have him.
Yeah.
He doesn't touch the ball often enough. He's not on the field often enough. If he gets me, he gets me. I mean, that's how I view it, especially on this slate where the opportunity cost at running back is very high. To play a guy at 7K that projects as like the 16th best running back on the slate. Like, he doesn't project poorly, but there's so many more that project better. I just don't play the guy.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I don't play him, but I think I can confidently say I have yet to be on the right side of Patterson this year. I think the few times I've played him have been like, one of those injury games or something. No, I think a fine spot to just be content to go a Tampa Bay stack and not bring back. If there were one guy to bring back that I'd pencil and probably be Pitts. But I think, I mean, how do you kind of just compare this game to the Los Angeles Cincinnati game?
Okay, well, let's get into that then. Okay, sure. So we got Chargers at Bengals. Bengals are favored by 3. It's a 50.5 total. Bengals 26.75 implied. Chargers 23.75 implied. Herbert is going to be one of, if not the most owned quarterback on the slate. Keenan Allen is going to be one of the most highest owned wide receivers on the slate. Mike Williams is going to pick up ownership. We've got Higgins in double digits. We got both Mixon and Eckler in double digits. I have this game as a minus due to ownership. Okay. Due to ownership and also due to I think this is a high variance game. We have Chargers typically play fast, and the Bengals typically play slow, and they typically would prefer to run the ball. The Chargers also typically put up drives. They're not necessarily the biggest play type. They'll put together 14 plays on their drives. So this totals at 50.5, which I think it could still get there. But I think the ownership is leaning more towards the side of a shootout. Well, I think the variance of how this game could play out, if the Bengals control the game, is that maybe there aren't as many plays as we think in this game. You know, Mixon has 28 touches, right? That type of game, and it goes under. And with the ownership on this game, with Herbert, Herbert, Allen, Williams, Herbert, Allen, Cook, type of things with Higgins as a run back, with Mixon as a run back, with Chase as a run back. And then you also got the other side, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Keenan Allen. Like, there's no, to me, the stack wise, to stack 4 guys from this game, you're eating ownership no matter where you go. So those points combined, I put this as a minus. I mean, it's not a bad game to target. I just think compared to the ownership, I don't see a way to get different enough. And is it worth what these ownership numbers are? Because I don't think so.
Yeah, we've got the LA side is just kind of more or less meh, break even type setup. Usually when I see high owned team that not super excited to play. So I was curious to hear kind of how you see them in comparison, because I see Tampa Bay as a high owned side that I'd be very interested, I guess, in playing, and LA is high owned side that I'm not super excited to play, but our numbers aren't showing as fade at all cost type thing. And when that's the case, I feel like probably just prefer to be underweight on a high owned team that not super excited to play. I think you hit the nail on the head.
I'm just to point it out, Stewart, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I've Tampa Bay as slightly positive, so not highly positive, but slightly positive, and I have the Chargers as negative. So I'd be much more inclined to play, even at high ownership, playing Brady, Godwin, Gronk, than playing Herbert, Allen, Williams.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, it really just comes down to pace of the two teams, right? Cincinnati, super slow, second slowest team in the league as far as time elapsed between plays. Chargers, fastest team in the league. So we've got a slight positive score on Cincinnati. I think just in general, it's, even thinking about basketball, back to basketball, I typically like playing slower teams that are going up against opponents that might force them to play faster, because baked into, DraftKings is pretty good about the pricing and all, but for the most part, players prices kind of are the field's understanding of their projectable performance is kind of likely tied to their historic, game log kind of prior distributions. And, you got a team that usually is playing slow and kind of scoring under the conditions of this slow team that Cincinnati is all of a sudden sped up. You could project a few more plays. So yeah, I'm modestly intrigued in the Cincinnati side. But yeah, have certainly a minus in comparison to the Tampa Bay Atlanta game. Think that you're just going to get similar ownership and just a better spot with Tampa Bay than you have with either of these two sides.
Okay, so let's get into some of the other games. So what's another game on the slate that you have as a plus?
Yeah, so was did a show this morning with Pete on his GPP show, and we built a lineup around one of the, I think is going to be a pretty chalky running back, but trying to figure out how to fit that running back in with a maybe more differentiation and kind of in a correlated but not super high ownership play. Not super interested in the Detroit side, but I do like, Jamal Williams as a possible bring back to the Minnesota stack. I think just in general, this game has some real appeal. Again, not so much on the Detroit side, but it's a cool way, I think, to get correlated lineup that is centered around the passing attack that you want and get exposure to a running back that I think is a perfectly viable play as kind of a running back that could do well in this sped up kind of push the game type way.
No, I'm with you here. I have the Vikings passing stack as a plus. And not necessarily Jefferson and Thielen, but more likely to use Conklin in the tight end spot to keep that stack cheap. So Cousins +1 of Jefferson or Thielen, plus Conklin and then run that back with Jamal Williams. So you're, like you said, Jamal Williams is going to be one of the chalkier running backs, but it's more likely to be played non-correlatively. So if Jamal Williams has a big game, a 20+ point game, well, that means the Lions probably were in the game, and they're playing in the dome, right? They're playing in Detroit, and Jefferson. I mean, all these Minnesota guys outside of Jamal Williams, this game is not going to be owned. This is all single digit owned. Why can't it? I mean, this game has a 46, 47 total. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you there. It does, and it's not necessarily because I like Williams. I think even if you don't play Williams, why can't you do like Cousins, Jefferson,
Hawkinson.
Conklin, and then like Hawkinson or Reynolds or like one of the Detroit. I mean, now you're Josh Reynolds is not that appealing of a play, but he's 3,400, and if you're going to punt somewhere, why not punt with something that's correlated to your line?
Yeah. No, I like this game a lot. I mean, what is it? It's got to be a top 4 or so game total on the slate. Yes.
Number 5.
Yeah. Okay. Just outside of there, but
right. 46
yeah, I mean, just
and
very,
a half. Right.
Very, very clearly, just like the lowest ownership at kind of that game total. I think all the games that are above it in total are just likely to get way more ownership. And this kind of feels like that nice sweet spot of good total with relatively low ownership. So I like that spot. Okay,
I got a plus for you, and you're not going to be surprised by it because this team is my Browns, right? You're always with the Browns, seemingly over the past 3 years, and I tend to be over on the Raiders. So I'm looking at this Washington Las Vegas game being played in Las Vegas in the dome, right? Foster Moreau is going to be one of the most popular players on the entire slate with Waller out. $2,700 punt tight end. Gibson is going to generate a lot more ownership now with McKissick out. So he may be close to 20%. The thing is that how about everyone else? So I think it's more likely people play Gibson and Moreau, but they don't play Carr and Renfro. They don't play Brian Edwards. They don't play Terry McLaurin, right? Who says Terry McLaurin 74? I mean, dude, McLaurin can go 6 for 120 with 2 touchdowns in any game. So why can't I play a lineup I could play both sides. I have no problem with Carr plus Renfro plus Moreau, and then Gibson or McLaurin as the run back. But I also don't have a problem playing Heineke plus McLaurin plus Thomas. Don't use Moreau and use Renfro as your run back or Jacobs as your run back. I think for the total of this game and the way that these players are projected, the only players in double digits ownership right now in this game are Gibson, Jacobs, and Moreau. So, why not this game? So I have this game as a plus. What do you have it as?
We have it as a minus. We're projecting a good bit higher ownership on Carr. I guess the thinking being that obviously Moreau stands out, great value. And I think I would expect a good bit of people will just go ahead, take I don't want to necessarily call Moreau a free square because I think, tight ends, pass catchers are kind of less free square than these running backs. But I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to just take Moreau and then figure, might as well play the quarterback that's going to be throwing to him.
But what about my contrarian take of you do the opposite stack where you're not taking Moreau, but you're taking Heineke. So you're basically the 2 highest owned players in the game are Gibson and Moreau, but you're taking Heineke, McLaurin, Thomas, and Jacobs or Renfro. So you're still taking the game, but those chalk pieces fail.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. And I do prefer actually the Washington side of things. And I'd even be fine with doing Heineke, McLaurin, Moreau. And, I guess you're going to just have to try to get different elsewhere. I think Gibson could be one of these running backs. Typically he's a guy that I don't want to stack with Heineke, but with no McKissick, maybe doing something like Heineke, Gibson, Moreau, McLaurin. You're obviously getting, the Gibson Moreau combo I think is going to be real popular, but I don't know that too many people will try to pair them with Heineke, Moreau, McLaurin, fairly popular, a little less so. Interesting. I mean, just going no Moreau, but just stacking yeah, Renfro and Edwards. I think that could make good sense. I mean, it's tough though. I mean, like the price on Carr has come up a little bit. I guess
Not prohibitive. It's 6K. It's not that.
Yeah,
bad.
no, right. It's not prohibitive, but I don't know. Just feels like it's up a bit, and I do kind of think of Washington as a somewhat tough spot. I would say I'm probably less bullish on this game. I mean, I can confidently say that I'm probably less optimistic in this game than you are. But yeah, I certainly think the way you're describing of attacking it makes a good bit of sense. And I guess I would just be wary of like a Carr, Moreau, Renfro, Gibson, or Carr, Renfro, Moreau, McLaurin. I guess
McLaurin's barely going to be owned. I don't think you have to worry about McLaurin.
Yeah, right. I guess it's Gibson is kind of the one that Moreau and Gibson I think are just going to be two high owned guys, and that obviously like two correlated guys at high ownership could burn you if you're off them, but if the game as a whole fails and all these people that have kind of that combo are pairing those players together, being on correlated plays of course can be good, and we talk about that a lot, but sometimes fading high owned correlated plays can give you really like turbocharged route to jumping large portions of the field should that kind of correlated pair fail.
What game does stand out? Obviously you have that game as a minus. What is the another game that you have as you would consider to be a minus based on expectation versus ownership?
Yeah, I think I guess to me maybe we're just a touch high on Jacksonville ownership, but I could see a good bit of people like wanting to get access to Kupp and Henderson and such, but thinking, all right, well, Stafford's priced pretty efficiently, and I don't want to do the obvious thing, so I'm going to be sneaky and do like a Lawrence Treadwell Kupp, or Lawrence LaVisca Kupp or Henderson type thing. And I don't know, to me, like if I'm going to play that game, I think I'd probably just rather try to find ways. I haven't tried to build the lineup, so it might be prohibitively expensive, but I think I would probably prefer to try to find ways to jam in like Stafford Kupp, and then bring maybe someone back on the Jacksonville side. But I could see a good bit of people trying to take the creative Jacksonville side, and I think that's like a spot I would like to be under on.
I got this game as a minus also, right? I got this game as over owned, especially on the Jacksonville side, right? With these cheap receivers, because there's not much value at wide receiver. There's really the value of wide receiver is very thin. So, with Jones at 4,700, Chenault at 4,400, Treadwell at 3,200, like people are going to, the ownership's going to go there for like a one-off play or possibly a Lawrence stack or something. And I'd rather bet against it. I mean, it's the Jaguars. The Jaguars what's their team total? The Rams 30.25, Jacksonville 17.25. So like how much ownership should be going into a team with literally second lowest, because the Giants now have the lowest implied team total with Glennon starting. Yeah, I don't find it to me, if the field wants to roster a stack and a game with one side having a 17 team total, to me, I'll just let them do it. Maybe you could play some of these guys as one-offs, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think about playing four guys in the same lineup from this game.
Yep. I agree with you there. Any other big minuses that you have circled?
I got Indianapolis, Houston as a minus. Okay. I see the value in leverage in this spot, right? Taylor's going to be high owned, so why not play Wentz, Pittman, Doyle, and run it back with Cooks, right? But Cooks is going to get ownership also. Why not play Tyrod Taylor, right? Right? I mean, but it's just that these offenses are, to me, very spread, right? Pittman may be the alpha, but I mean, you still got Hilton there. You still got Zach Pascal. You got the tight ends. Taylor catches balls out of the backfield. Then on the Houston side, Nico Collins and Farrell Brown, David Johnson. I mean, that to me, I think a lot of people may play Taylor plus Cooks or something as a secondary correlation. But from a projection standpoint, even though the other guys in this game are lower owned, I'd rather the same type of ownership is on the pass catchers in the Minnesota Detroit game, and I'd much prefer the Minnesota Detroit game than this Colts Texans game, because then it gets to the same thing what we said about the Jaguars. How many people from a game do you want from a team that has a 17 implied team total, right? To me, it's the type of thing of take Taylor as a one-off, take Pittman as a one-off, and just be done with it. The Colts score, you get 20 plus points from someone, and you're done. But I think that it's not like this is going to be a high-owned stack. I just think it'll be an over-owned stack.
Yeah. And two other sides that I have is, again, not high-owned, but just I think going to be over-owned. I think a good bit of people will try to do like a Philly type stack. And I think to me, that's a spot I would like to be well under. Just I get that like Hurts is kind of an exciting fantasy player, but it's just, I don't really see how this game works out in a stackable way, just given how run heavy Philly is. And Pittsburgh, Baltimore as well. I could see, like, again, not a ton of people going to, but a decent amount of people going to. Just a spot I'd kind of like to just be completely off of, if even if it's going to get 5% of teams or so are going to 3 to 5% of teams are going to stack. Like, just good with having none of those.
Right. The only interesting part of that game that I like is Chase Claypool. He doesn't project all that well, but I think Deontay Johnson's going to get a fair bit of ownership in that game. Not many other players in that game will, but negative correlation to Deontay Johnson would be Chase Claypool to me. Like, yeah. I don't want, and you would say, oh, how about Najee Harris? But remember what I said in the very beginning, like the opportunity cost at running back is high. So I don't want to play poorly projected running backs. I don't mind playing poorer projected. So Chase Claypool is not poorly projected. It's just that he's like 2 or 3 points lower than some of the top 20 wide receivers. But I'm more likely to, if Deontay Johnson's going to get 22% ownership and Chase Claypool's going to get 3% ownership, like why not play Claypool instead of Johnson? But I mean, I'm not looking to play, a Ben Roethlisberger stack here.
Yeah. So what, I kind of have a good bit of minuses this week, but like in doing my initial stuff, like I'm just getting a ton of Brady and Cousins stacks. I mean, and kind of struggling to find other pluses that I'm legitimately excited about. I mean, I feel like we've gone through most of the games as kind of minuses or over-owned. Curious to hear.
Yeah, but I'm with you. No, I went looking at the slate. I ran through lineups earlier today. It's, to me, this is more about avoiding minuses than finding the pluses. Right. Yeah. I mean, like, that's why I'm looking at this going, like, I don't mind playing a lot of Tampa Bay. I really like a lot of these games. I just look at it and go, yeah, like San Francisco, Seattle. I go, no. Arizona, Chicago. No. I mean, the Giants, Dolphins game. No. I mean, like, yeah, like I just like, so I'm going to be focused on a lot. I mean, to me, I'm going to be focused. From the looks of it, I'm going to have a lot. My stacks may be very condensed this week on Tampa Bay, on Washington and Las Vegas, even though you have it as a minus. Minnesota, Detroit, right? On the Minnesota side,
right.
And then just like rotate through a lot of like the running back, all those 10 running backs, just like rotating 3 of them through lineups. And then the one-offs and all those things, just don't take out a group of the highest owned wide receivers and just group them out and say only in stacks, and then just run through and hopefully I get there.
Yeah. It's like Tampa at the ownership that they're projecting at is kind of a spot I feel like more weeks than not would prefer to be off of. But yeah, I mean, look, sometimes you got to kind of be condensed when there's just a lot of stuff that you're not interested in. Like, don't be like diverse just for the sake of being diverse. Like if the diversification options just like aren't appealing, I
But you could but Stewart, I'm being diverse because
right.
all those running backs and all that. I mean, like, it's like my player pool this week may be bigger than any other week this season. Yet I may only be playing it as a game stack in a lineup of 9 slots, only 3 different games. But that means I have a defense and 4 other spots to fill. Those 4 spots as one-offs or secondary correlations are going to be very diverse.
Yeah, right. Right. Okay. So yes, rather than diversifying at essentially quarterback, which is the position where people choose to kind of diversify the most, or I guess you see the flattest ownership, and more or less quarterback kind of defines the I guess flavor of your stack, if you will, being willing to be fairly condensed there. And yeah, just have, combinations of a pretty diverse mix of players as kind of one-off secondary stacks, or, certainly with Tampa, I think you could go a number of different ways with your stack. So sometimes there's weeks where it feels tough to, allocate lineups to Tampa Bay because of the number of combinations you have to get. But this feels like a week where there's not really other places I would like to spend kind of those extra allocations to, possible Tampa Bay combinations. So maybe a week to be comfortable doing that.
What's similar about all 3 games that I'm targeting?
That?
They're all in the dome. Especially when it's December and it's get cold outside, right?
Yeah, that is true. I guess let's see, Jets, that could be cold. It's a pretty nice day though here in New York. Sunny but cold.
Either that I used the Blitz projections too much, and the Blitz loves the domes.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, it's getting that time of year, and something to keep an eye on. I haven't really begun to look at weather for the weekend, but yeah, it is getting that time of year. Looks like we don't have, I guess, it's not quite that late in December, and the usual suspects, the Packers, Chiefs, Buffalo, not quite main slate this week, but it's snow season,
Right, but you could always check out the weather report on Rotogrinders with Kevin Ruff. So go to rotogrinders.com, check out the weather if you want to take a look, and you could get all of Stewart and Advanced Sports Analytics, the stats for the slate, all those optimal percentages in your Substack. Right, you're going to be sending that. I'm assuming you're sending that out probably right after the show.
Yep. Yeah, gonna type it up and make some adjustments. We haven't updated for projecting Glennon in as starter, so want to update that. But yeah, then we'll run that through, type something up, send it out this afternoon or evening, depending your time zone, and we'll be tweeting that out once it comes out. So just follow us on Twitter if you're interested to know when that drops.
And you can follow on Twitter AS Analytics DFS. You can follow Stewart at Stewart Gibson, me at Blender HD, and if you're on FanDuel, we obviously got the OGs League. So if you're not playing on with Beer Makers Fan and Head Chopper and Notorious, go and always sign up every week for that contest for week 13. Like and subscribe on your way out the door of watching the show. Give me the thumbs. Give me the subscribe button. Give me the notification bell to know when we go live on this channel. So for Stewart Gibson, I'm Jordan Cooper, and there's been another edition of the Advanced Sports Analytics Show here on Rotogrinders.com.